Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I have some work to do on this Para3. This is my Maxamet Para3. It's my forever user Para3, if you will. I love this knife. If you haven't watched my review of it, you probably should. It's just a knife that I think is the perfect Para3, and the Para3 is such a great platform. Something you guys haven't seen is I did a hardware swap on here. That was about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, and as I did that, it was because I had an extra black clip laying around, and then I saw my buddy Thomas Moore had done some black hardware swaps on the knives that came with satin hardware. I think it looked great, and I decided to do it. So I ordered some stock hardware from Blades We Love in black. It arrived, the hardware was perfect, and as I was installing it, the lanyard tube really threw me for a loop. So that video didn't end up making the cut because it turned into just like 10 minutes of me fussing with it, and then I ended up actually, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I put a little divot there, a little chunk out of the factory G10. So when that happened, I made a decision. I had toyed with the idea of doing a scale swap on this Para3 for a long time. I thought, as much as I love the gray G10, I think it looks great and it functions excellently. I've had this knife for a while now, and it would just be fun to spice it up a little bit, throw a different scale material on there. And so it was like the next day, there was a sale in one of the groups that I'm in for some scales from Ripps Garage Tech, and I have never used any of his products, but I've heard excellent things, so I figured why not jump on it and give them a shot. Now these are Blue Denim Micarta, which I think is just awesome. Right now they look kind of gray because they don't have any oils in them or anything, but I imagine once they start soaking up those oils, they'll turn a little bit more blue, but right now the color actually looks pretty similar to that, as you can see. So I got those scales, and then I was thinking about it, and as I was deciding exactly how far to go with this build, I realized I probably didn't really want to fuss again with the lanyard tube, and so I thought Flytanium makes some titanium lanyard tubes that would foreseeably fit better. They're not like press fit in, to my knowledge, so I thought that could be a good idea. And then as I was doing that, I was like, well, if I get a lanyard tube, I might as well just get a full set of hardware for it. So even though I just switched this to black hardware, the plan as it stands right now is to switch it to the hardware in this package, which there's actually a set of hardware for another knife in here as well. I'm just now remembering as I open this, but the plan is to use this. And I cut that poorly, didn't I? There we go. This set of hardware instead of the black hardware. These are for another knife. Perfect. So I'm thinking that the Blue Denim Micarta with the brass anodized or bronze anodized titanium hardware will look really cool with the satin blade. I think it'll just be a great kind of motif for the knife. So hopefully this time it goes a little smoother. I've watched a video since on how other people remove the lanyard tube. I'm hoping that helps. And yeah, we'll see about getting this one out. Hopefully it's not too big a deal. But the couple of tools I'm going to use today are fairly simple. I do have on the table some blue Loctite. I like to have that just in case. I have this kind of extra set of tools in case I need to have one on both sides of the pivot or on both sides of this spacer. It's very helpful to have a second tool and a second driver when you're working on Para3s and paramilitary 2s, in my experience. I have this bag of extra goodies. I might switch back to this kind of plain titanium clip on here with these. I think that might look better, but we'll see. Maybe the black will actually look cool. I don't know yet. So I've got this mostly for the clip, and these are just kind of stock hardware and all that from this knife. I've got this little dish to help me keep things all in one spot, and then I have my trusted Weehaw set. I've got a video specifically just about this set, and in that video it's linked on Amazon. I think these are right around 30 bucks, and I use this set all the time like crazy. It's super handy. So I'll be using those. And then I have, I haven't ever bought a bottle of KPL or anything. I've tried it on a few knives from buddies who had it. But I usually, when I lubricate, literally just use this because it's what I keep in my gun cleaning and maintenance kit, and it's what I have. So it's lubricating oil. This is just Hoppy's 9. So that's here as well in case I feel the need to apply some. So right now the knife is centered, the action is good. I do have just the littlest bit of play in here to have it kind of that loose. So I'm going to see if I can dial it in even better on the reassembly. But yeah, let's dive right in without further ado. I toss the container for that. So on here, I should just need a T8 for the pivot. Nope, I'm wrong. T10. What a chump. Now I need a T10. Yeah, T10 for the pivot. And I think my body screws are bigger. Clip screws are T6. Are body screws a T10 or T8? T8. So I'm going to need T10, T8, and T6. I wasn't that crazy. I was just wrong on the screw. So T10, T8, T6 bits are going to be what I need. That happens to be T10, T8, T6 in here. So that'll be helpful, I'm sure. Let's go ahead and get going. Now I'm going to start by disassembling, and then I'll pull these out and reassemble it. So this will actually probably be the first time that I fully like lay this knife out all the way disassembled. So I'm going to start with the clip. I find it's best to just kind of get that out of the way first. There's one clip screw. There's 2 clip screws. There's 3 clip screws. This is a Lynch clip. I get asked fairly often whether I prefer Lynch or MXG clips. And it's an interesting question. I will say I do give slight preference to Lynch clips. They feel just a little nicer to me. The coatings seem to hold up just a little bit better, although I haven't really had that like negative experiences with MXG's coatings. Some people say they flake off immediately. That's not been my experience. I do think the Lynch clips feel just a touch nicer. The access to the screws is much trickier on these. It's harder to get those screws into those holes. I like to leave them in case I'm reusing it, so that I don't have to fidget with getting them in there. But yeah, I would say the Lynch clips feel maybe 10% nicer. It's not that big of a difference. And the reason why I own some MXG clips as well are because sometimes it can be virtually impossible to find a Lynch clip in the color that you want. They're sold on a number of sites. Sometimes you can find them direct from him. And Casey Lynch is an awesome guy by all accounts. I don't know him personally, but everyone I've ever heard talk about him says great things. So I like buying from him. He's in the US, all that. But when they're not available, they're not available. And when I want a clip, I want it right then. So sometimes I just order an MXG because they seem to always have the color I want in stock when I need it. So I guess that's not a real straightforward answer. The reality is that I like both. All right, so really beyond that, there's no more need for the T6. I'm gonna go ahead and get out my T8 on this guy now so that I can go from both sides at once. Bear in mind, I am certainly not an expert at knife maintenance or assembly or disassembly or anything like that. I've done this type of thing a couple of times, but it's not like I've done all that much on PM2s or Para 3s. I've usually left my PM2s and Para 3s stock other than the clip, and the clip is very easy to install and uninstall, obviously. Side note, this black mat was missing for a little bit, and so I'm stoked that I refound it. Let's see, it does look like I need to get both sides at once here. I'm gonna retighten this side down because it seems like this is the only side spinning. Let's see if I can break this side loose. That worked, perfect. Let's see if this side will come out. Ooh, that was bad. It's a good thing this knife is getting new scales. That didn't really do anything, but it's easier to be a little rough on things when you know they're getting replaced anyways. All right, there's one screw. Let's see if this guy will come out. Or if it's just gonna spin that. It seems like it's just gonna spin that. Bummer. All right, that means I need to get this screw back in. This is kind of the delicate balance on disassembling these, is like, because the screws aren't captive side to side, it takes just a little bit of finesse to get them both going, I find. Yeah, now it feels like it's just unscrewing the opposite side. So, all right, I'm gonna see if I can get a little bit of torque on it once it's open. Just grab onto that and see if, hopefully I'm lucky and can get that undone. Let's move to the pivot now. I need my T10 in here and in here. This was the first like torque set I ever bought when I was first kind of getting deeper into the hobby. I'm glad that I did. It's actually done really, really well for me. All right, there's one pivot screw out. Let's get this other one. I like to work on my knives a lot of the time with the blade open. Some people might kind of warn against that. I just try to be careful as I go, and I haven't really had any issues. So there's our pivot. There's one washer. There's the other. Washers appear to be in good shape. They're not bent or warped or anything. It's cool how this is like polished right here. I hadn't noticed that until I disassembled this knife the last time, which is the video you didn't see. So in here we've got our stop pin. It's pretty stuck. All right, let's see. This should, in theory, be a little easier this time because it's already been apart. Let's see. I'm gonna switch to my T8. Hopefully this wants to come out. It seems to want to spin more than want to come out. That's a bummer. All right, I'm gonna come back to that in a moment. Let's do this. See if I can get it out of my way. So the liner is pressed in here very snug, as you can see. And the way that I'm going to get it out, I'm going to need to get it off of here. It's already got a little wiggle in it. That should help. All right, let me snag. This might not be the most highly recommended way to do this, but it's on the inside of the knife. Oh, and these are my scales. Man, that is really pressed snugly into there. Goodness. I'm not sure how I'm going to get that started. This is not recommended. Yeah, that already feels like a terrible idea. I'm not going to do that. Why is it always difficult with PM2s and Para3s? It's funny, I recently scale swapped my Shaman, and that couldn't have been easier because the construction on that knife is just easier to disassemble. It's a better design in that way. I don't really know why all these things have to be press fit in here so tightly. Let's see if this one comes out easily. See, I don't want to torque on the lock bar too much either. Oh, this is still held in with a screw. I don't know what I'm doing. The panic begins to set in. My goodness. I wonder if they're always that tight or if this one is just different for some reason. That's the scientific way to do it. Oh, it looks like I actually got it to, haha! Got it to begin splitting. Is it enough? Oh, yes. Come on. There we go. All right, that's coming up. Oh, it's tight. There it goes. Felt that pop. Yeah, that was really, really in there tight. Now let's see if this trick for the lanyard tube will work. Torque it that way. Torque it back this way a little. I'm just gonna play with it kind of back and forth. Yeah, excellent. That's so much easier than it was last time. Now I gotta get this out of the liner. There we go. So there's my lanyard tube. All things considered, it's really not very gummed up or anything. Now I'm almost considering skipping on this hardware and putting the black hardware and black clip back in. I might have to see how that looks with this. We'll see. Maybe I'll try the bronze first. I bought it and it wasn't exactly cheap, so I should probably try to use it. All right, let's see on this. Thinking I may need to screw this back in. In order to give myself some torque. Why does that not feel like it's going in at all? I guess that's as far in as that goes. Interesting. Literally just getting tight again. Okay, I got this side out. That's one step in the right direction. Now let's see if I can get this guy off. Oh, that's a bummer. You know what? I might not need this though, if I'm going to be using that other hardware. So I'm going to leave that like that for the moment, because I've got all this. So let's assume that's going to work. All right, so now I've got to get this side liner off, and my thwack trick worked. These might be scales that I'll take a Dremel to and try skinny scales finally. Let me know if that's a video you'd like to see. It's something I've been wanting to try. So since I've already messed them up in one or two spots, that could be could be something worth doing. So those scales are done. So let's see what we're left with now to go forward. So the things I'm still going to need are obviously going to be the liners, the blade, the stop pin, the washers, and then the new hardware I will need, and the new scales. So let's bust these open. Little sticker. That feels cool. This has a different texture from the G10. It's a little bit less sandpapery, but I find that micarta, even though it's less sandpapery and like has less kind of defined traction, it stays in hand every bit as good as G10. It's got like a different kind of texture altogether. And I'll say right off the bat too, this feels, it's either lighter or the same as the G10. There's definitely not a weight gain compared to the G10. It feels a little lighter to me, so that's cool if that's true. This is a Para 3 lightweight now. Not really, but all right. First impressions on these are that they look and feel very cool. I can already see that they're picking up the oils from my hands. All right, so let's go ahead and first things first, let's throw the liner in this guy. That fits perfect. It doesn't like snap in like it did on the factory scale, which I kind of like. I didn't necessarily appreciate how tight those really were. Now let's make sure this side fits as well. Excellent. Same thing. It's like there's not play in here, but it's not tight like it was in the factory scale. So I like that it's not wobbling, but it does feel like it's really, really set in there. All right, now let's bust this open. Let's see what we're working with. Don't want to lose that. So here is our hardware set. So this is going to be our new lanyard tube. Let's see. That feels like it's going to just press in. It still feels snug like a factory one, but it doesn't quite have the lip like a factory one does, so that'll be good. There's our stop pin. It's going to go right there. That's nice and easy. Yeah, I think I am going to go with the bronze hardware. I think that's going to look really cool with this material, especially as the material darkens a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to move forward with the bronze. So let's go ahead. Oh, it's even got clip screws too. Perfect. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now the question will be whether I'm going to use the black clip or go back to that one. Time will tell. All right, let's get down to business. So one side of the pivot is D-shaped. That's going to be the show side. So I'm going to need my washer on there first though, aren't I? I'm going to give it the tiniest dab. Maybe I'm just going to use my fingertip actually of lubricant. That is more than I meant to put. So I'm just going to kind of, I don't want to overdo it here. I just want the littlest bit just to kind of assist. So my D shape, let's go in there. Excellent. That's where that's going to sit. And let's go ahead and flop the blade right down on there. And then I put a little bit of lubricant on there. I guess I should put a little bit on either side of the blade too. So a tiny bit there. Just gonna. This is, as you can see, not an exact science for me. I'm not the kind of guy who wants to make sure that every pivot on my knives is perfectly lubricated for maximum drop shuttiness. I rather just kind of let the knife wear in over time, and I find that dialing the action does more than adding lubricant. And this is on washers, so it shouldn't really like need lubricant like other knives would. All right, let's make sure this stays on here. And then I guess I'm gonna chuck this in right now. Seems like as good a time as any to do it. Let's see, I want to kind of pound that in, I guess, because it does need to be pressed down. That didn't work. Let's see. Goodness. crazy, or if that just doesn't want to go in. You can see the oils from my hands really soaking in on that. Goodness, that doesn't want to go, does it? Why do lanyard tubes even have to be a thing? I can't stand them. There we go. That was a pop. There we go. All right, that's set in. It does look really nice there. I'll give it that. All right, now let's get back to setting this up. Is it showing that I'm not a pro at this yet? Just making do. One thing that's nice about this being my forever Para 3 is that if I happen to mess something up, I'm not doing it to someone else's knife. I don't care about the resale value on this knife. I just need it to be fully functional because it's a knife that I carry and use, so I need it to work. But if I happen to scuff something or whatever, then so be it. All right, you know what, I should probably get at least one side of this guy started. That way, it's ready to go. Thread that through the scale. Get this guy at least started on there. Excellent. Now we should be ready to stop pin goes. Stop pin doesn't really feel like it wants to set in. There it goes. Okay, the stop pin is set. Now I just need to get this back piece popped in, which we all know is going to be difficult. There we go. All right, that's popped in. Great, great, great. Yeah, this brass does look, or bronze, I should say, does look really, really cool. I like that a lot. Let's chuck these in so that I can stop pinching the pivot, which means I'm going to need to switch to my T10. I'm not going to worry about adjusting the pivot at the moment. Oh, is that a T8 now? It is. Okay, so these screws are not a T10 pivot anymore. They're T8 now, which is okay, but I would prefer, especially for pivot hardware, I like it when it's a T10 at least. I don't necessarily, that's the wrong screw. Come on. I don't necessarily like it when pivots especially are smaller bits. The bigger the better on that application, in my opinion. Okay, yeah, that looks cool. That's going to be a welcome improvement. Let's get this last screw in here. Okay, so I'm tight on this side. Tight on this side. I'll torque it down with this one at the end because I get more leverage there. But let's see real quick. That's crazy. It's already almost perfectly centered and the action actually feels really good. And there's not any more play than there was before I started throwing this together. Yeah, this material, it's darkening up like immediately, as you can see, compared to when this came out of the box or out of the pouch. It's a big difference there. All right, let's get this finished up. So now the question for me is, do I think a black clip will look cool on here? Yes. Or would it be cooler to throw on this one, which is the clip I had on it for a long time? Ooh, also yes. That is tough. This one's actually already kind of worn in too, which I feel like will look cool with the micarta. I think I'm going to save this for another knife and put this guy back on, because that, I think, suits it just a little bit better. So we're going to go back to that clip, which means I won't need those screws. I'm going to leave them set in it so that I don't have to worry about it next time. Now, the way that I get screws into a Lynch clip is as follows. I find it's easiest to put the screw on the head of my driver so that it's kind of set on there, and then I stick the tip in, that's what he said, and just kind of maneuver it right into the spot where it's got to go. So if I try to set these in with just my fingertips, I'm going to be really wrestling with it. Also, the first time you install one of these, the angles on the bends seem to be a little bit more harsh, so it's even harder. But since this one has already been on a knife, it's loosened up just a hair, so that's part of why I'm having an easier time with this than you may if you've never done one of these before. Awesome. Now those 3 screws are in there. Let's go ahead and set them onto here. Go ahead and start. I don't find that it's important what order I tighten these down in. Just kind of got to get them started. Alright, so let's get them tight. Let's get them tight. With these little guys, I am pretty gentle on how tight I'll go. I just get them hand tight. And with this driver, I can't apply that much torque because it's pretty thin. So I like that about it for this kind of fine detail stuff. I'm just gonna torque them down nice and easy. I've never had issues with these clip screws on a Para 3 or on any Spyderco, frankly, coming loose when I've tightened them like this, so I'm not going to fuss with Loctite or anything like that. Just going to call that good. All right, that looks very cool. Let's go ahead and just make sure everything is torqued down properly, and then we're actually done. So this isn't exactly the quickest process ever, but it's not crazy either. Go ahead and torque on that one. Torque on this one. I'm just kind of feeling the tightness on these. It's nothing too scientific for me. That's going to be too tight, I already know. Yeah, that was a close one. Yeah, that's way too tight. So let's back it just a little bit off. And just a little bit off. Almost there. Tiniest bit more. Tiniest bit more. Better. Still not dropping though. So we gotta come just a littlest bit more. Oh, that feels better. We're still not quite dropping shut. See how that feels. Still not quite there. As you can see, this isn't like an exact, we're, I would say, 90% there. Let me give it the smallest tick here. That feels good to me. All right, so there we have it. This action is actually more solid than I had it before I started this. Yeah, this feels great. I like the look of this on first impressions. I feel like this is gonna wear in really cool. You can see how much the oils on my fingertips are already affecting this. So this is gonna have kind of a cool like patina effect, if you will. And I think that looks awesome compared to the factory scales. It's a similar enough color that I don't feel like I'm departing too much from the character of the way that this knife came from factory, but that bronze hardware was the right decision. That was the way to go on here. I think that looks great. And the way this feels in hand, I will say I like it a little bit better. I love micarta as a material. I love the way it feels and the way it functions. And this is good micarta. This is the right level of grit without being it doesn't feel like loose or like too fibery. It does feel like kind of a finished material, but it has the right level of traction. That feels great. I like that a lot. This Para 3 just got spiced up in a fun way. I'm excited to carry this a lot more and get this material to wear in. It's weird, there's like a light spot there. I imagine that's kind of the nature of the material. There's spots that'll take the oil better than others. Anyway, this has been fun. This is cool. I hope in some way my terrible amateur installation was able to help you at least a little bit. Like I said at the very beginning, I am probably not the right person to be like teaching how to do this. I'm definitely not an expert on the subject, but I've done it more than someone who hasn't done it, so there's that. And maybe even watching the things I struggled with will help you think of better ways to get around those hurdles and obstacles. There are some knives that I am so comfortable taking apart, fully disassembling, putting back together, and I can do it all day long, and I can do it quick, and it's no big deal. But knives like this, the Para 3 and the PM2, are notorious for being a little more difficult to work on. So take that for what it's worth, I guess. It just comes with the platform. But functionality-wise, they're some of my favorite knives. So it's worth it to me that they're a little bit harder to disassemble. It's not something that, frankly, you really have to do if you don't want to. I've never had a reason mechanically to need to take one of my PM2s or Para 3s apart. I suppose it could happen where you have something you need to do maintenance-wise, but that's just not been my experience. I haven't had any issues at all that have required me to take one of these knives apart. The only times I've disassembled them or even had to put tools on them really is maybe for a minor pivot adjustment, and then other than that, it's just like swapping clips, swapping hardware, stuff that's for fun. So it's nothing that has to be done. But yeah, I really like these Ripps Garage Tech scales. First impressions are super solid. Once I've carried this knife a bit, and once I've kind of used it and made sure that my impressions right as I get them on the knife are accurate, then I'll go ahead and do kind of a review on those. That way you guys will know how I feel about them, how they compare to the factory scales and other micarta or TerraTough scales that I have had. And yeah, that should be fun. But I'm really happy with this. I like the way it turned out. I think that clip was the right call, now that I'm seeing it all put together. Yeah, this has been fun. So thanks for checking it out with me. I'm going to go ahead and finish getting all this cleaned up and get on with my day.